welcome back to Genuinely LAS, and welcome back to one, a surprisingly sunny day in the United Kingdom in June, and two, a surprisingly cool van, the Volkswagen ID Buzz. Now the ID Buzz is cool for a number of different reasons, but this specifically, the ID Buzz Cargo, is very cool because it's Volkswagen's first ever from the ground up all-electric van. And it uses the same MEB platform that you'll find in the ID car range. So this essentially is a big car. And you can tell that because 0 to 60 takes just 10.2 seconds, courtesy of a 77 kilowatt hour battery that produces theoretically 250 miles of range, although realistically you're looking more so at 200 miles. And you also find that when you're sat in the front in the driver's seat, the steering wheel is the same as you'll find in the ID cars, with the same haptic feedback buttons, which is actually relatively nice compared to what we had before with just a slidey panel, no real feeling in anything. So at least you know what you're pressing. Now, it's when you step in the front of the ID Buzz you really appreciate electric power. Because there's no engine, they've been able to push the windscreen so much further forward, which means you have a surreal amount of space in here. You've essentially got the dashboard and then two separate storage areas behind the dashboard, and you have massive glass panels where the A pillars would usually be blocking most of your view. So it feels like you're in this glass bubble, which is actually really nice driving such a large vehicle. I mean, in terms of storage, I really nailed the brief in here, making use of what electric power offers you. I mean, my dad drives a van for work, and the amount of paper, spare parts, pens, biscuits that accumulate in the car, we've got to store them somewhere. It feels like there's always somewhere to put something in here. You've got obviously storage bins on the inside of the doors. As I said, you've got them above the dashboard. You've got one just below the center console. You've got one just above the glove box. There's a wireless phone charger next to the steering wheel. You've got 4 USB-C ports in here as well. Just chuck it in there. It feels really well thought out. There's no really soft, delicate plastics in here. You don't need, it's a van, you don't need that. Everything feels durable, fairly rugged. You get 3 seats, which makes it even harder for me because now I've got to find 2 friends instead of 1. You can also option a glass panel just here, which is really helpful to keep an eye on any cargo you've got in the back. If you chuck the kids in there, if you chuck hostages in there, you can keep an eye on them, easy breezy. Obviously, this being a van, usually you wouldn't really necessarily get a rear view mirror in the first place, but I guess it's a nice touch, makes it a bit more like a car in a way, which sums up the ID Buzz Cargo in a bit of a nutshell. It looks like a van, feels like a van, you sit up high like you're in a van, but it's essentially a big storage-based ID4 underneath, which you can't complain. It still hits the brief, but it does have quite a large limitation as a result. Now, I think we should talk about the looks of this car, because personally, I think the ID Buzz looks good. I think it looks good. It's clearly based on or a tribute to the original Volkswagen camper, so it's got that history there. But in my opinion, and this could be pretty controversial, I just don't think it's the same. I'm really glad they didn't call it a camper because it's too different. In my opinion, the original Volkswagen camper was almost a symbol of freedom, a symbol of rebellion. But they've essentially taken the idea, smartened it up, fattened it up, put it in a suit, and here you end up with the ID Buzz, which, don't get me wrong, means that when you look at this thing, it doesn't really smile. It looks like an evolution of the Volkswagen van, which for all intents and purposes is a great move. I think it works in its own right, but I just don't think you can really compare it to an original camper van. The question I really want to answer is this van more style over substance? Because, well, straight out the blocks, from a payload point of view, the max payload of this is just 607 kilos, and that's not even top of the range model. That's just the normal Cargo Commerce model. This, the Cargo Commerce Pro, 592 kg payload. You compare that to a Volkswagen Transporter, that's over 700 kilograms. It's a chunky difference. And not only that, you can get a higher payload in cheaper, smaller electric vans, which does baffle me a little bit. You could say that's because this van is essentially the van version of the Buzz car. But considering the load zone is 3.9 meters cubed, you'd expect more, you just would. It's not helped either by the fact that this van starts at just over £48,500, not including government grants. And this top of the range model, the Commerce Pro, starts at £53,600, which is a lot of money. A lot of money. It is stylish. It is stylish with, and I do love the blue, but is that enough? Is it justifiable for the money? This van is just not aimed at usual van users. They're not trying to change people's minds or convince people that this is a van for them. It's just aimed at people who want a van that's electric and looks quite nice. I'm not entirely surprised because actually for a van, a very good looking thing. It doesn't just look like somebody just swapped the face or swapped the badge of a Volkswagen van, for example. There's an effort's gone into the design, which does make it a little bit special. But still, £40,000. On the infotainment side, I've come to accept that the VAG system is fine. And the reason it's fine is because you get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which means you never really have to use it in the end. You can put your phone into the phone charger next to your left knee and just use your phone system. And that was perfectly fine. I will give props to Volkswagen though, because the screen is closer than in other ID products. You don't feel like you're having to reach and try and drive whilst trying to operate haptic feedback buttons. That is a step in the right direction. This is my first time driving an electric van, and I can say the seating position, from what I remember being a passenger seat, is pretty spot on. You're nice and high, you're looking down into peasant vehicles like Audi Q7s and Volvo XC90s, so that is an absolute win. The seats are comfortable. I've got to say, the ride is quite firm. Yes, this car does weigh 2.3 tons, and it's actually only on 19-inch alloys with nice thick tyres, but still, it's pretty firm. You're bouncing around quite a lot, but still I found as I've been driving around, when I'm not on a smooth country road or a smooth main road or a motorway, it can get quite bouncy, or just it feels like the car feels like it thuds into potholes a bit or thuds into grooves in the road, so you kind of just think that you're bouncing around a bit like this, which isn't too great, but it is quiet here. Yes, there is wind noise. I mean, the wind mirrors are the sides of my face, but one, they do give a great view, and two, the wind noise really is very livable. Wind noise is very livable. I don't really think about it whilst I'm driving along, and it's just, I think if you accept there's going to be wind noise from a van, it's totally fine. Back to the battery side of things, 77 kilowatt hour battery. I've been doing a variety of different driving today, and I'm averaging 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour, which is it's decent. It's decent. Especially if you're using this during the day just for work. Top speed is electronically limited to 90 miles an hour. One of my favourite features on the battery side has got to be the regen braking. I don't normally put the car into the actual battery regen mode because it's quite an intense experience. You take your foot off and it feels like someone's slamming on the brakes, which is pretty annoying on a main road. So I just use a normal mode, and it's great. When you're coming up to a junction, the car automatically slows down. When you're approaching a car, the car automatically slows down using a battery regen. It's a smart system. I know I've said this before because it's come up when I was driving the Cupra Born. It's my favourite way to utilise a battery regen. As you can imagine, just like other van group electric vehicles, this car's loaded with safety gear. We've got blind spot monitors, you've got a reverse view camera, but only in the Commerce Plus model, the top of the range model, which this is. You get parking assist in this as well, and you get lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control. But I have to say this is my opinion across all of the VAG Group electric cars I've driven, the lane keep assist is intrusive. There's no kind of question about it. And a lot of the time, especially when I'm driving, making these videos, and I'm driving on country roads, when you could say the road markings aren't that defined, the car really does pull you along. When it thinks it's found the middle of the road, if it thinks you're not on it, if it thinks you're too close to it, it pulls you back. I love the idea of lane keep assist just to kind of keep you in line on the motorway, and I think it works really well there. When you're going along country roads, it feels pretty invasive. Yes, you can turn it off, but every time you turn the car back on, it turns itself back on, which is pretty unideal, let's say. So realistically, is the ID Buzz cargo more style leather substance? I think you have to say yes. In summary, you can get a larger payload space for less money in this own range with a Volkswagen Transporter. But I still really like it. I think this reminds me of a Ford Ranger Raptor. It's like saying I want to get a Ford Ranger for work and then going out and buying a Ford Ranger Raptor. It's so unnecessary. You don't need it. There's a cheaper option available, but it's cool. It is cool. It's got something about it which is a bit better, which is just more so than a standard model, and I think that sums up the ID Buzz so well. Yes, it's more expensive than a normal van. Yes, the capacity isn't the same, but you still get good range from it, just over 200 miles on a regular basis. It's cool to look at. It gets loads of attention. It's comfortable. It's spacious. The cabin is a lovely place to be. It's so airy and light. It's hard to not choose it. For the majority of people, if they can have a choice between this and a normal van, a normal diesel van, I still think this is a great option, especially if you're in a big city like London where you have ULEZ to deal with. It's a surprisingly cool car, and I recommend, even if you're not 100% set on it, give it a go. Take it for a spin, just give it a go. Well, thank you for watching. This has been Genuinely LAS. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think of the ID Buzz cargo? Would you consider one? Do you know anyone who's got one? And thank you very much for watching.